and it can get that can cause a lot of problems, and people can go crazy.
I would think so.
Yeah, so it's there's a medication that they give people, several different types of medication that they give people to be able to go through these gates. But then it's the modern Stargates that they're using that really don't have that problem. You basically instantaneously go from one place to another, and there's no lag time. So we have this, just to finish off this whole series of thoughts before we go into what's happening now, there is a lineage of people who are descended from extraterrestrial humans. They had advanced abilities, and that's in fact part of what allowed them to help build our society. These extraterrestrial humans were of immeasurable help in building our society, and their descendants basically ran the show for a long time. And that's why you have divine right of kings and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's happened is that there has become a negative trend. Again, these people were not negative in the beginning, but there's become a negative trend that's woven itself through a lot of this stuff, and those negative folks have actually kind of seized control over a lot of the other ones. But there's a lot of people in there who are not buying into the negative agenda, and that's why I really, really decry this trend on the internet of xenophobia where people think, oh my God, Illuminati, they're all evil, we got to kill them, we got to get rid of them. There's so much signs within these groups of mass disquiet. They don't like what's going on, they don't want to be involved, they would get out if they could, but if you try to get out, they'll hunt you down and kill you. But what's now happening is the rest of the world is aware that these people exist, and they don't want to have a 4.5 billion person reduction in global population. Now, the argument is that this is going to be good for the environment, that it's going to promote the restoration of the biosphere and allow the planet to restore to its original state. But I firmly and emphatically believe that this is a cover for what does amount to racism, in the sense that a lot of these folks are effectively Caucasians. Caucasians are some of the most recent extraterrestrial lineage to come to the Earth. Caucasian is not native to this planet at all. And so they actually do see Caucasians as superior to other races. And whether it's an uncomfortable subject or not, and I know that it is uncomfortable, but it is a fact from what I've heard on the inside that they basically want to get rid of a lot of these other people who are not Caucasian. They're not so worried about Caucasian people. I mean, they certainly are willing to let a lot of them go, but that's the main race that they want to try to keep on the planet. And again, this is psychosis. I mean, this is just insanity. Yeah. And it's hard to even have a straight discussion with somebody when they start going into something like this. And, you know, I in no way, it's just insane to promote genocide. And yet what's happening is that these guys are now making their endgame maneuvers. And here's the trick. They're trying to get this population reduction, but they're doing it much too hastily because they've run out of time. They are now being closed in upon by everybody else in the world. There is a massive worldwide effort being made to shut these guys down. And again, it's only the people at the top that are really the ones promoting the negative agenda. Most of the people that are in this group, of which there are probably millions, there's definitely over 1 million of them, at least in America. I don't know how many there are outside that in the rest of the world, but we know there's about 1 million. So these people would get away if they could, but they're being kept held prisoner by their leaders, and the leaders are the ones that are really promoting this agenda. These people were born into it. They are abused from the time they're born, if not before they're born, and they have to go through all this astonishingly awful stuff that does make them extremely, extremely strong people. They go through training processes that involve the use of mind manipulation. And the average person, if you were to go through what these people have to go through, it would make you have a mental break and you would end up needing to be institutionalized. It's only because they've been going through this since the time they were very young that they can actually handle this type of treatment and not completely die from a heart attack or otherwise lose their ability to function as a mental, as a mind.
Right, because this is just the way it is. They grew up that way.
Yeah, it's the procedures involve a combination of sort of short-term, highly psychedelic drugs, the usage of hypnotic triggers and suggestions, the usage of certain films that actually impose programming within the film, and then the usage of electroshock as a form of operant conditioning where they're trying to get people to be loyal to the group. The loyalty to the group is actually the main program that they install. But this program is installed effectively under torture.
Yeah.
And they create these partitions in your mind. They have to get to you before you're 3.5 years old or else it won't work. And even if you're 3.5 years old or younger, that's when you get what they call a core split. And that means that you actually have an amnesic barrier against this other part of yourself. So there can literally be people in the Illuminati who do not know that they are in their waking daily life. They have a lot of clues. If you wake up and you have the phone off the hook in your hand, that's a darn good clue that there's something going on. If you find yourself compelled to go to bed at night and you're wearing your clothes and you don't know why, but it just seems like the right thing to do, that's another very good clue. And again, there's very few people that this is going to apply to, and I in no way want to encourage paranoid schizophrenia because unfortunately there's a lot of people out there who write in and say some really crazy stuff. And I'm aware that this will make people more crazy. So I don't try to go into a whole lot of detail about this stuff because people start having a paranoid fantasy that all this stuff is happening to them. Most of the people out there, in fact, almost everybody listening, this does not apply to you. And you're not being mind controlled and you're not in some secret group that you don't know about. If you were in this group, there would be plenty and plenty of memories that are easily available to you of being involved in rituals and things like that. And all you got to do is just think a little bit and you'll start remembering lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly fear that keeps you from looking at it. But anyway, these people do not want to be in this group. The majority of them do not want to be in this group. And it's like, I don't know what the heck we're going to do about it because I'm hearing some very, very disturbing reports that really make me very upset. And the latest reports that I'm hearing now is that because a lot of people's covers are being blown, we're already seeing, like, for example, people who are working undercover, who've been working for these guys, they're being killed in the most appalling, torturous manners possible. And yet, they may not have voluntarily gotten those jobs. They may be doing those jobs because they had no choice, and everybody's covers are getting blown now, and as a result, they're sometimes dying under the most hideous tortures imaginable. And this is starting to happen. I'm getting this from a very, very high source. These guys are being systematically hunted down, and again, the knee-jerk response that most people would have when they hear that is, hallelujah. The part that I feel regretful about is that it's happening with extreme violence. There's great acts of humanitarian tragedy that are being done against some of these people now, and that obviously is going to make them very concerned and all the more protective. Now, I do think that probably as this whole thing starts to break open even more than it is now, that if anybody out there listening is actually a member of this group, I think your best bet is to not wait for them to come to you. I think your best bet is to take protective measures now, request amnesty, and be willing to speak before some sort of truth tribunal. You do not want to wait until they come to you and start tearing you apart, because this is what's starting to happen. And I am certainly happy to be one of the people out there as a spokesperson to say, look, we cannot reenact Hitler's Wehrmacht. Yeah. We are not animals. We are not monsters. Hitler convinced everybody that if you're a Jew, you are the devil, and you deserve nothing more than hideous torture. And Germans may not have known the full extent of what was going on in the concentration camps, but you better believe they knew that the Germans were purging the Jews because they were very angry. Now, they had to put money in wheelbarrows, and on my website I told a story about these two kids who brought German marks to the center of town in a big basket, and they were hoping just with all that money that they could buy like a little bit of food for their family. And the kids were kind of naive, and they ran to the store windows just to look inside and see what was there. And when they turned around, someone had stolen the basket, but not before they dumped out all the German marks on the road. That's how that's how low value the currency had. The basket was worth more than this heap of money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the amount of economic suffering that's caused by that, then everybody wants somebody to blame. Well, what do? You shift the public's blame towards this group of people. And it's starting to happen now. There is so much xenophobia on the internet. Everybody wants to believe in a black and white world, in a unilateral devil, and say, "Oh, there's the devil. There he is," you know. And anybody that is in this group is the devil. Well, guess what? Now, I'm not saying that I know any of these people personally, because I don't, but I am significantly well aware that there are more A-list actors in Hollywood than you would care to ever know who are members of this group. That's one of the divisions of the group is media. And as I said, it's like we kind of consider these people our family in the mainstream media. Would you advocate the same kind of torturous treatment of them too?
Yeah.
So I think that what's going to happen at some point is that there's going to be sort of an astonishing breakthrough where some of these people break ranks and actually say, they come out clean and say, look, you know, this is what's going on. We were involved in this group. It's been going on for thousands of years, and da-da-da. And there's a big disclosure like that, because if you read what's going on with Benjamin Fulford, and again, periodically we get some stray gunfire from people saying, oh, Fulford isn't credible. Well, I completely disagree. Benjamin Fulford was the East-West editor for Forbes magazine. He has been in contact with insider sources who have revealed information that later was proven to be true based on what happened in the media on many occasions. He got tipped off to the economic failure that happened in 2008. There's plenty of evidence that he's in contact with real people, and in fact, there have been so many times that Fulford comes up with something that I was independently hearing from my own insiders.
For
and
the
again,
folks that don't know who that is, who is that?
Who is who?
Benjamin Fulford.
Oh, as I just said, he was the East-West editor for Forbes magazine.
Okay.
He lives in Japan. He was actually doing an investigative journalism on where all this money that Japan was making was going, because Japan has a massive financial surplus. And it's like, sorry, that was my call waiting. Where the heck is all the money going? So what happened was, he actually tracked it down. He tracked it down, and he was able to discover that it all traced back to the Rockefeller faction, which it was originally started by the Rockefellers. It doesn't seem that they're running it anymore. But it's the sort of the U.S. version of the Illuminati, which now is actually in strident opposition to the European or Rothschild faction. And the war that started to go on there was that when Fulford found out that the Rockefeller faction was absorbing all this wealth out of Japan and basically doing it under gunpoint, Fulford's life was threatened, and he was offered the opportunity to join the Illuminati, or else be killed. And he would have been given a very powerful position as like a foreign diplomat or something, and he refused, and only because he was then contacted by representatives of another group that were effectively resisting the Illuminati. And this group has now formed something that he's calling the White Dragon Society, which includes a fairly good percentage of people in the Pentagon, a lot of the people who are not on the negative side that are in the Vatican but are well aware of what's going on with the Vatican